The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this livestream event possible. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. PayMaya Philippines. PLDT. Smart. Simple. Smart ako. Shopee. Union Bank. Bank the way you live. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. My name is Pam Pastor, Assistant Lifestyle Editor of the Inquirer, and with me is Dax Lucas, Inquirer Business Writing Editor, who will be my co-moderator for this livestream event. The Philippine Daily Inquirer and its sister companies introduced Project Rebound in the desire to empower Filipinos amidst these difficult times, and to do its part in helping our economy bounce back. We've been doing this by sharing insights from experts and success stories that are meant to inspire others to recover and thrive. This is also why we are here today. To know more about Project Rebound, let's watch this video.
The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting lockdowns have dealt a heavy blow on the economy. Millions of Filipinos were left jobless, thousands of companies were forced to close, and thousands more have had to downsize to ride out the downturn. But all is not lost. Almost a year into the crisis, the Philippines has begun its journey to recovery with stimulus measures and policies in place. Filipino companies, groups, and individuals have also shown their resilience and are slowly regaining their footing. The Philippine Daily Inquirer, along with its sister companies, seeks to do its share to help the Philippines bounce back from this unprecedented crisis by doing what it does best: tell the stories that empower the Filipino. Through Project Rebound, the Philippine Daily Inquirer will share expert insights and inspiring stories of how businesses can accelerate their recovery, how to retool and recalibrate to survive and even thrive amid the COVID-19 pandemic in collaboration with the government, civil society, and the private sector. With its 67 million strong reach across multimedia platforms, the Inquirer Group is indeed in a favorable position to inspire a rebound from the crisis. Together, we can and will overcome.
This afternoon, our topic is Retail Disrupted, how online platforms changed the way we shop. So we all know that online shopping has really been a big thing over the last year or so that everyone has been in lockdown. Some people have called it a sanity saver, myself especially. So what we want to do this afternoon is give all the stakeholders involved a chance to see the broad picture and to zoom into the finer details of the online retail trade, to give them the lay of the land, so to speak. And most importantly, we want our audience to come away from all this with actionable information, whether he or she is an online retailer, an online shopper, or even a brick and mortar business operator seeking to widen his footprint online. So stick around for all those insights. Pam?
Very excited as a heavy online shopper. I'm very excited to hear from our panelists. But before I introduce them, we would like to give an exclusive offer for our viewers today. You can get a free 30-day trial of the Philippine Daily Inquirer's digital edition, Inquirer Plus. We are flashing the details on your screen so you can see how to get this free trial. Check it out. You're going to see pages there that you won't see in the newspaper. We produce stuff that's just for this digital edition, so you'll find exciting things there. You can also visit shop.inquirer.com.ph to know more about Inquirer Plus. Okay, now I'm going to introduce our guests for today's session. Our first speaker is Martin Yu. Martin is a director at Shopee Philippines, and he's also the company's main spokesperson. Prior to joining Shopee, he held various roles in Credit Suisse in both Singapore and London, most recently as Vice President, Fixed Income Strategist in Singapore. Martin graduated magna cum laude with a dual degree from the University of Pennsylvania. He holds a Bachelor of Economics from the Wharton School of Business and a Bachelor of Applied Sciences from the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Business and science, you're really perfect for Shopee. Good afternoon, Martin.
Hi, good afternoon, Pam. Good afternoon, everyone. So I guess a brief introduction. I am Martin Yu, Director of Shopee Philippines. Over the past year, Shopee has become the go-to app for a lot of Filipinos, a platform for shoppers to get things they need, for brands to expand their reach, and for many sellers, a place for them to thrive and grow their business. So it's a privilege for me and for us as Shopee to help Filipinos and the community to recover from the effects of the pandemic. And I'm very glad to be here for the Philippine Daily Inquirer's Project Rebound.
Thank you, Martin. Now we have our next speaker, John Januszczak, or John J, as he suggested we call him. John is the president and CEO of UBX. UBX was initiated to positively impact financial inclusion and business growth through technology. Founded 3 years ago by the Union Bank of the Philippines, UBX operates in Singapore and the Philippines. Recognized as the fastest growing fintech company in Southeast Asia in 2020 by UK-based Global Brands magazine and Best Digital Community Impact Initiative in Southeast Asia 2020 by Capital Finance International. Under his leadership, UBX has defined the standard for digital payment platforms and access to credit. So this is interesting, listen up. Originally from Canada, his degree in astrophysics and experience in telecom, commercial software, banking, and insurance industries provides a unique and well-rounded perspective for digital platforms. Prior to UBX, John served as the Chief Operating Officer of Manulife Philippines. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Pam and Dax. Thanks for having me, and Martin and Paolo, an honor and a privilege to sit with you guys on this panel today. UBX was spun out from Union Bank of the Philippines, and we spun it out because we believe that the future of financial services is invisible. It will be embedded into the activities and experiences that truly matter to individuals and business. And more that's being done on digital platforms. So UBX is a technology company. We are specifically interested in digitally and financially underserved communities. And of course, one of the biggest digitally and underserved communities pre-pandemic, and certainly now during the pandemic, is the community of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And of course, all of these businesses have had to go online out of sheer necessity. And so I think that's why UBX is here today. And it's really very well aligned with us to be part of your Rebound program. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, John. And our final speaker is Paolo Azzola. Paolo is the Chief Operating Officer of PayMaya Philippines, the digital payments arm of Voyager Innovations. He graduated with a degree in International Relations at the London School of Economics. Prior to joining PayMaya, he was the Managing Director for Rocket Internet AG, where he was responsible for financial technology. He helped grow Rocket's influence in the alternative lending and mobile payments verticals, covering fundraising, idea generation, and acquisitions. Hi, Paolo.
Hi, Pam, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. With PayMaya, really, the objective that we have is to enable people, businesses, and government to have access to quality and easy financial services. And obviously, over the last year, this has been something that has been on the minds of not just a happy few, but on the minds of everyone. So I'm really excited to tell you how this ties into commerce in general, and really happy to be here with John and Martin. Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. Now we're going to begin our discussion. The first question is for everyone. Okay, how were online shopping platforms performing before the pandemic, and how much did that change during the pandemic? Let's start with Martin.
Thanks, Pam. So I think even before, we have been seeing strong and sustained growth since we launched in 2015. Our overall goal was always to provide a better shopping experience for shoppers, support digitization of MSMEs, and of course help brands adapt to this new digital-first environment. But we did notice that online shoppers wanted to do a bit more than just shop online. More of us turned to our mobile devices for our needs, including for entertainment and of course social interactions. So seeing this, we tried to level up our in-app engagement tools and of course introduce new initiatives. So we can talk about Shopee Feed, Shopee Live, Shopee Chat, and Shopee Prizes. And of course, with Paolo here, digital payments was obviously something that grew a lot, and it was a huge development for a country where cash payments are generally preferred. So we introduced Shopee Pay in the Philippines in 2019, our integrated mobile wallet. In 2020, there was actually a 4-fold increase in the total number of orders made by Shopee Pay. So very exciting.
Okay, now let's go to John. John, sorry, we can't hear you.
There you go. I already got hit by the webinar. You're on mute.
There's
syndrome.
Always someone.
I think we've all been there. Our research, and there's lots of research with slightly different numbers, but our research suggests that from 2019 to 2020, across the globe, there's been an over 50% increase in e-commerce. The trajectory for the Philippines, $15 billion in dollars by 2025. So obviously, e-commerce has taken off. To put it in the context of UBX, one of the solutions that we started ideating on before the pandemic was the easiest to use e-commerce store builder for MSMEs. We actually ended up launching it about a month into the lockdown. And in less than a year, we had over 30,000 merchants joining that platform. So just an anecdote, I think, to show the demand that was out there. And just like Martin alluded to, digital payments have exploded at the same rate. We have embedded payments like Shopee does in our e-commerce platform, and we have a payments platform probably along the lines of what PayMaya offers, but I think complementary. And we provide that for people not using our e-commerce platform, but people who need to pay digitally on the e-commerce platform of their choice. And we've seen that, likewise, explode. And then lastly, we have a credit platform, an embeddable credit platform for MSMEs. And one of our most successful implementations of that is actually embedding it into Lazada. So Lazada as a marketplace, within the merchant experience, they're able through this embedded platform to apply for working capital credit on the spot, and we decision and approve them instantaneously. And it's probably not surprising for everyone to hear that the demand for that and the amount. I think we've processed over 3 billion pesos worth of loan applications at this point. And again, we've only really been at it for about a year or so. So I think all of those anecdotes just speak to the incredible growth of e-commerce. So a very unfortunate situation, but I think everybody here would agree that this actually is a golden age of e-commerce in the Philippines.
That was my turn to be on mute. Thank you, John. Now let's hear from Paolo.
Sure, thanks, Pam. So pre-pandemic, what we were seeing was already a movement in the right direction in terms of digitization of cash. When I arrived in the Philippines in 2014, I think the picture was we had about 70 to 75% of Filipinos who did not have a financial account. And we had about 99% of transactions that were happening in cash and only 1% in electronic form. And if you fast forward to even 2020, beginning of pre-pandemic, those numbers were obviously very different. We saw a cashless transaction percentage of 20%, according to studies from the BSP and the Better Than Cash Alliance. And that number there is only expected, of course, to go in one direction, which is supposedly to 50% by 2023 or even 2022. That's the challenge that we have going forward. So even pre-pandemic, as an industry, the financial industry was only going in the direction of digitization. And that was obviously down to, I think, first of all, the digitization of the commerce experience through players, of course, like Shopee and Lazada and so on, of course, of any form of payment related to even physical transactions, such as ride-hailing or other kind of experiences that happen in person, but also through a big push from government from 2018, 2019 onwards, various government institutions jumping on the digital bandwagon and not wanting to be left behind, right? And that's been a very big driving force that I think has even picked up further over the last year and a half. So I've really seen, even pre-pandemic, a very big thrust towards the digitization of financial services. And of course, that has accelerated in recent months and in the last year.
Thank you.
Okay. So Martin, John, and Paolo, for all three of you, could you help our audience understand through the examples of size and scope, which particular products or service categories in your particular companies really stood out over the last few months of the pandemic? How much did it grow? And I know John touched on this briefly earlier. Give us an idea of the changes that happened over the last few months and what helped you adjust your companies to the new demand out there. Martin, maybe you can start.
Sure. I mean, of course, us coming from the e-commerce frame, I want to talk about how there's a lot of push towards daily essentials such as groceries, household items, personal care products. So I can talk about our recent sale. We had this 4/4 mega shopping day sale. So categories like home and living, beauty and personal care, mobile accessories, these all emerge as top selling categories. I think people are spending more time at home as well. So that coupled with the need for hygiene essentials and personal care items became top priority for shoppers. And of course, that was exciting for us to see because it's a development that we've been trying to push for a while, but now it's happening more naturally.
Basically, everything you used to go out and buy, and now you're doing it online, right?
Yes, exactly.
John, you mentioned a while ago that you also saw an uptick in loan applications.
Yeah. We have a multitude or a multiplicity of platforms that are targeting the SMEs, and with the explosion in e-commerce, we've been able to notice it not just in our e-commerce platform, but also in the associated platforms like payments processing, digital payments processing, which Paolo's alluded to, but also for lending. MSMEs historically have been underserved by banks when it comes to lending. Pre-pandemic, SMEs represented over 60% of the GDP, but I think the statistic is less than 10% of the loans extended from universal and commercial banks were actually going to this critical segment. And as you can imagine, going into the pandemic, it becomes even more acute because lenders are actually tightening credit policies. They're worried about capability to pay, and of course, you don't want this to kind of spin down the wrong way. Now, what we found is because we had a digital lending platform, we knew that the demand would be there because of how acutely affected the SMEs were. But what we were pleasantly surprised by is, yes, lenders were tightening or being more careful with their lending, but they're still in the business of lending. And in fact, as much as they're being more careful, they have to look harder for good credit. And when there's a pandemic, the ability for people to have face-to-face meetings, to come into a bank branch, to submit documents, that becomes a lot more difficult. And so our lending platform resonated with lenders. We actually have 12 lenders on our platform, and most of those lenders coming online in the last year. And by the way, the platform's called CCAP. You can actually apply for a loan directly if you're a business at ccap.ph. But like I said, and I think this is my final point here, is this platform is embeddable. And so by embedding it into the e-commerce marketplaces, you have a win-win-win. You have the merchants who have had to go online and they need access to credit. They've always needed access to credit. Maybe now they need it more than ever. You have the lenders who still need to reach and still need to lend because that's their business. And then you've got a digital ecosystem, in this case, e-commerce, where the merchants are transacting. And so it's very easy now for the merchants to share data with the lenders, and for the lenders to actually approve more loans because they have easy access to digital data. So a real win-win-win.
That's amazing because we really need to get those loans moving to get the economy back on track. So you're doing great work.
Yeah, and I think I think that's one of the biggest observations for us. We've talked a little bit about some of the enabling technologies that go along with not just the front face of retail a la e-commerce. We've talked about payments. We haven't really talked about integrated delivery yet, but I think that's another big one. But I think it also goes much deeper than that, and that's a big observation with us. After people can arrange for logistics, after they can get paid, after they can handle digital payments, what comes next? Well, now I need to run my business, even though now it's online, and I need access to credit. I need access to more banking services. I need access to basic cash management to pay my suppliers, things like that.
Fantastic. Paolo, I know PayMaya is services a broad swath of the economy, but is there any particular sector you've noticed a spike in over these last few months?
Right. So I think the segments that have benefited the most are starting off on the enterprise side. Really, we've seen the MSMEs really pick up quite a lot in terms of applications to us, onboarding to us, but also volume. So I think our year on year, we saw an increase in onboarding of merchants of 3,000%. So last year to this year. So that means that a lot more MSMEs are out there thinking, if I don't get my business online now, I will lose out to someone else who's doing that same thing. We also saw, of course, a very big spike in government payments, where the likes of the BIR, the likes of SSS, and so on, both ways, both government to person, but even more so person to government and business to government, those payments have really taken off. You cannot go anymore to a physical government location to pay your taxes or to get your license. And so it has been a very, very big change for government type payments also. Now, the other big change that we saw was related to the consumer side, where the number of applicants for PayMaya wallets, and it's been across the entire industry, a similar picture, has increased very significantly. And the use cases that have obviously benefited the most are online payments, bills payments, and online transfers. Obviously, the in-store payments have suffered a little bit more with the different types of community quarantines that we have seen. So those, I think, are the big pockets of growth that we have seen.
3,000%. Oh, amazing.
That's amazing. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your thoughts with us. I need to give PayMaya a personal shout out because you recently launched PlayMaya, right? And my nephew, he had his birthday recently, and all he wanted were Roblox credits, which are called Robux. I had no idea where to buy them, but I looked at PlayMaya; they were there, so I was able to buy him a birthday gift super easily, and he was so excited.
Thanks for the shout out, Pam. Thanks a lot.
If you're watching and you have questions, feel free to send them in and we'll ask our panelists to answer them for you. We have people watching from Palawan, from Dagupan, from Pangasinan, from all over the Philippines. So if you have questions, send them in. Before we continue with the next part of the program, we're going to take a quick break, so stay tuned for more. The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream event possible. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. PayMaya Philippines. PLDT. Smart. Simple. Smart ako. Shopee. Union Bank. Bank the way you live. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
Wala akong ibang nais kundi maparating sa'yo, maibigay ng tagumpay pangangailangan mo, kahit na malayo pang patutunguhan ko lalakbayin, basta para sa'yo.
Sino ka man, nasaan ka man, nandito ang Shopee para sa inyo. Shopee 66, mid-year sale. Shop na!
Add to cart mo na.
Napansin mo ba, mas madalas ka nang magsabi ng stay safe kesa bye-bye. At aminin mo, nawili ka sa TikTok, hindi para mapasaya ang sarili, kundi para mapatawang iba. Napansin mo rin ba, na palagi na kayong kumpleto pag nagsisimba? At sino mag-aakala na ang daming maglalabas ang internet celebrities ngayon? Ilang pagkain na bang na-order mo? Kahit di ka naman gutom, uhaw ka lang makatulong. At nakailang care emojis ka nang nasend mula ng ECQ. Pansin mo, iba na bigla ang go-to playlist mo. Alam mo rin bang mas maraming naglalabas ng pera ngayon? Kahit taghirap? Alam mo kung bakit? Kasi patuloy mang magbago ang mundo, isang bagay ang mananatili.
Malalampasan din natin to.
Hindi tayo mawawalan ng pag-asa. Kaya patuloy namin pinapanatili pinakamabilis at pinakamalawak ang inyong network. So we can all be connected by hope.
8 billion of us share our planet. And it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best: quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
Where am I? Welcome, Dante. Let me show you around. Please, right legibly. Wait po. Teka,
Thank you. Next.
I need to pay my bills.
I need to pay my bills. Yeah. Enroll nyo muna mga billers nyo.
What? With my UB Online, no need to enroll to pay my bills. Pwedeng free yung fund transfer and one valid ID lang, naka-open na ako ng account via app. I don't belong here.
And we're back. Hi again, everyone, and thank you once again for tuning in to the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Now we're going to move on to the next part of our online discussion. We have more questions waiting to be answered. Okay.
All right.
Dax.
Yeah. This one, any three of you gentlemen can drop in. This is from the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation. Which tools online will be most useful for a business wanting to make that digital shift? I guess this means this is a platform for you guys to showcase your own offerings, right? Okay, Martin, go ahead.
Okay, of course, I'll talk about Shopee. Shopee is really focused on championing and supporting MSMEs and brands to transition to grow their businesses online. So I can talk about recent campaigns with it. We launched campaigns in partnership with TTI to spotlight local sellers. One of these was called Tatak Pinoy Virtual Trade Fair. And of course, there's another, the National Food Fair. These are great examples. And we onboarded more than 400 community-based businesses through these initiatives. Sellers can, of course, access a wide range of tools on Shopee to scale their digital presence. I'll talk about some of these. So one is the Seller Center. This is the tool that sellers can use to monitor and optimize sales. It's understanding what they're selling and what they can do to sell better. And there's a seller performance system, which is a point-based system that helps seller track their performance operationally. So it's am I shipping on time? Are the people getting their goods on time? And of course, the third is a seller education center, and this is all about providing sellers proper modules, just like a class on how to increase their sales, improve operations, and create better online presence. I can talk a little bit about an example of a seller who actually benefited from these in-app tools, and I think I've mentioned her before. So there's a seller named Lysel. She's the owner of a shop called Big Curves PH. So I think she's always been a very physical store kind of seller. And when she first went to e-commerce, it was a brave decision, but she really thrived being a salesperson. Someone wanted to talk to their customers. So when we introduced Shopee Live, this was something she really jumped on, and she started live streaming her product. And of course, that's where her selling skills really stood out. She was able to answer questions about her products, just like she was on her physical store. And this really got her engaged with her customers, grew her sales, all from the comforts of her own home.
Fantastic. John, let me tweak that question a bit for you. Okay. Here I am. I'm a brick and mortar guy. I've been doing well before the pandemic, but now cash flows are a bit tight and I don't know the way forward. Can you help me?
Yeah, well, first things first, just actually like your question to Martin, you've got to get online. Consumer behaviors changed overnight, and you've got to get online out of sheer necessity. It doesn't mean that you have to close your brick and mortar store, but if you don't get online, you're going to have a lot of trouble. What we noticed is that a lot, and this is funny, before the pandemic, our research had suggested there's a huge shadow market of casual sellers, side hustles. And we started thinking about that market. When the pandemic hit, it was no longer just the casual sellers and the people with side hustles. It was people with going concerns. And they did very simple things. They started selling over Viber. Everybody knows with the food and beverage, the community Viber groups, and people are selling food there. People are posting things on Facebook in their stream and in Instagram. And, we said, well, look, what we were originally targeting for the casual sellers and for the people with side hustles actually now has broad appeal and in fact necessary, because what we had created was a tool we called Centro, SENTRO.ph. And we created it to kind of cover the gap between people trying to sell on Viber and Facebook to people with their own online presence. Maybe they use Shopify or in a marketplace like Shopee. And we said, well, how do we close that gap? And we created Centro to be the absolute easiest to use shop builder for the web. And literally, if you have a business, within minutes, you can set up your store. It has basic inventory management, order management, checkout, integrated payments, obviously the lending, which is something that's going to become important as you sell more, and integrated delivery. I talked about that before. So really, within minutes, you have your own online store, and you can accept payments and you can deliver. And so that's what we thought, that the first thing for people who are offline who need to get online, we just have to make it as absolutely easy as possible. From there, they can use their Centro shop to power other marketplaces, whether it's a Facebook shop, whether it's a Lazada or a Shopee or a larger marketplace. So that was one of the big tools that we created to help people get online. Now, if you are going online or remaining on Viber or Facebook, our payments platform, which is embedded into Centro, and it's called Bux.ph. It's also available standalone, and it will work for very simple use cases. You're selling something over Viber, you owe me 490 pesos, and you can generate a digital invoice, a digital payment link on demand, and you can just send it through Viber or through Facebook Messenger. And the customer can pay however they want, whether it's a GCash or a GrabPay wallet, whether it's online banking if they have a bank account, and including over the counter. So as digital as payments have become, the last mile still might be a cash payment, but of course we make that simple by aggregating the largest number of over-the-counter payment options into the tool. And so that's so we have an e-commerce platform that I think complements what Martin talked about. We have a payments platform for people who continue to sell through Facebook and Viber, and then of course I've already alluded to our lending platform. So regardless of where you sell, if you get online and you're selling more, you will need working capital if you're successful to build that business, and we provide that through ccap.ph.
You're really going for the one-stop shop kind of model here, aren't you? It's great. Good for you. Okay, Paolo. Okay, what happened? What? Okay, hang on, guys. The transmission for Retail Disrupted was disrupted. Hang in there. Okay, here we are. Everyone's back?
Yes.
Okay. Paolo, let me just ask you about PayMaya's service offerings, okay? If I'm a brick and mortar guy, I've been running a small mom and pop store all my life, and now I want to go into the kind of services that PayMaya offers, but I'm scared. So I imagine you guys would have some way to help me ease into this brave new world, right?
Yes. So generally speaking, payments is what stands between a customer wanting to buy something and a merchant wanting to sell something. it isn't an experience that both the merchant and the consumer really want to go through because they love making a payment or accepting a payment. And therefore, keeping that as simple and as seamless as possible within the entire value chain of the payment is absolutely critical. So what we have tried to do is to make the merchant experience as well as the consumer experience as easy and simple as possible. Let's talk about the small merchant that you discussed earlier. I need to get online because it's a necessity given the current situation and the world to come in the future. And therefore, I've made that decision to take the plunge. My next step is, what kind of online presence do I get? Do I go to Martin and get on Shopee? Do I also at the same time sell through my Viber, Facebook, Instagram, whatever other channels that I might have? Do I simply just do it on SMS? Any of these channels here are available to them. And therefore, as a payment provider, all I need to do, or my objective, is to make that payment experience omni-channel. Whether the merchant is selling on Shopee or on their own website that they created through Shopify, or whether they're just selling through an SMS, that experience of the payment of the customer being able to pay the merchant needs to be embedded in there. And me onboarding myself as a merchant onto the PayMaya platform needs to be seamless also. It can't be, I need 142 documents and it'll take 3 or 4 weeks for me to get on board. Nobody will be able to do that. And so we've really tried to streamline the documentary requirements, the onboarding experience, the settlement process, and the after sales if something goes wrong or if there are questions from a customer or from a merchant. And over the last year, it has really gone from it takes several weeks to get a merchant account to it takes a few minutes. And that, I think, is something that merchants have appreciated quite a lot. That speed to become dangerous online, that speed to market, and as well as that omnipresence across all of the channels where I like to sell to my customers. So that, I think, is absolutely critical in providing the experience. It's simplicity of the entire value chain.
In other words, making it as painless as possible. Excellent.
That's right.
Over to you, Pam.
Thank you. So this question is from one of our partner organizations, Public Relations Society of the Philippines. The e-commerce industry has obviously experienced a surge with consumers quarantined and unable to patronize brick-and-mortar shops. They want to know, how does the size of online shopping in the Philippines compare with that of our neighbors and the rest of the world? Let's start with Martin. Martin, how do Shopee shoppers compare to the Shopee shoppers in other countries?
I can actually cite the DTI recently updated its e-commerce roadmap, and of course, with a lot that's been happening, it's accelerated a lot. And they use the number saying that it now accounts for 4.3% of the Philippine GDP, equivalent to 850 billion pesos. And their forecast is for this to grow to 5.5% or 1.2 trillion by 2022. So I think our main point is Shopee will definitely play a massive role in this growth, and we're truly excited with what comes ahead.
You mentioning the GDP kind of makes me feel better about the amount of online shopping I've been doing. I've been contributing to the GDP.
We've been helping.
Yeah, this is me helping the country. John, over to you. How are we compared to our neighbors and the rest of the world?
Right. Well, I did like your anecdote there. I know you guys are joking. In some of the professional groups that I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and whatnot, at one point in the pandemic, people were sharing how much they're saving. So for people who can save, who have that luxury and that privilege, people who do save were commenting how much they were saving because they were locked in. And my feedback was, isn't that exactly the problem? We need to spend. That's what we need to do. And thankfully, because of things like e-commerce, because of the marketplaces that Martin and others have set up, because of digital payments like PayMaya and what we've done with Union Bank and now with UBX, we really have that ability to continue spending. And it's I know we're laughing about it, but it's so critically important actually that we do that we continue to spend. From an e-commerce perspective, before the pandemic, I think it was generally known that the Philippines was a bit of a laggard, and I think there were infrastructure, quote unquote infrastructure. I'll call it infrastructure in the broadest possible sense. Still a heavily cash-based economy. Connectivity, also, basic connectivity, also an issue. And I talked about things like delivery. And I think Martin could probably speak to this equally as I could. But to deliver across the nation requires aggregation of quite a number of providers. But that's exactly what's happened. The pandemic has forced our hand. It's forced people to adopt digital payments. Whether it's bucks.ph, whether it's GCash, whether it's PayMaya, it's forced companies to go online, as we've talked about. And it's forced us all to consider things like, how do you aggregate a desperate or disparate logistics network? And I think both adjectives at the beginning of the pandemic were appropriate. But the Philippines has come a long way. It's come an awful long way. And Martin cited the stats. The Philippines is now a very healthy e-commerce economy. And I think all of us can anecdotally speak to how much better a delivery is now than it was 12 months ago. For example, how much easier it is to pay now than it was 12 months ago. I think it's not difficult for us to come up with very personal anecdotes along those lines.
Thank you, John, and thank you for making me feel even better about my spending. You mentioned saving. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be able to save so much during the lockdown. That was the first 2 months, and then Shopee happened. And oh my God, it was a sad day when I didn't get any Shopee delivery. So I don't know if it's a problem or a good thing. Paolo, what about you? What can you say about the Philippine market when it comes to e-commerce compared to the rest of the world?
Well, I'm obviously extremely positive on the country as a whole, and that's one of the reasons why over the last 6.5 years I've dedicated my life to making some things in this country even better. But I'm going to take a slightly contrarian view, just because it adds to the conversation, not because I'm a negative guy. And I'm going to say this: as we continue to, let's say, to roll out or to expect the new world to come back, right? Which is us going back to our normal lives. There is a danger that the slower we take in getting the country back on its feet completely, the more we risk leaving some people behind. And that means that this rollout of the vaccination program, this, of course, restart of the economy, is something that is a ticking time bomb. Not just because from a insular country perspective, it's important to get people back to work and back to earning money and back to being able to spend money properly, but also because from a competitive standpoint, if we are left behind compared to other countries in the region, and if they get out of this faster than we do, then we lose a competitive edge comparatively on a regional and on a global level. And that's something that the Philippines over the previous 5 or 6 years had really done a great job of doing. It's of making sure the economy was continuing to grow at 6 or 7%, at making sure that some key industries like the BPO industry and several others were really associated with the Philippines. And that's something that we're going to really need to restart very soon in order for us to have as much of a growth potential over the next 5 or 6 years. So I do look forward to the economic restart as much as I've enjoyed, of course, the digitization of a lot of experiences, including payments.
Same, Paolo, same. We have our next question. What are the common concerns encountered in the online platforms, and what innovations did you have to introduce because of the pandemic? Who wants to go first? Or do we? Yeah, let's start with Martin again. Let's just
volunteer. Thanks. So I guess again, it's all e-commerce for me, but I can talk about it in three parts, and we have the users, the sellers, and the brands, right? So users, I think, I guess you guys and so have, my biggest problem when it all started was finding the relevant items for our users for what they need, what they want, and a lot of this was us curating it and making it the center of the campaigns we ran. So for 5/5, the Shopee March sale in 2020, we were focusing on making sure the items that people were looking for, the stuff I mentioned earlier on personal and household items that you definitely need during the pandemic, these were front and center and available. The other was what John mentioned earlier, of course, that ensuring that products that were ordered were delivered on time. Even especially at the beginning during these heavy government restrictions, where there were heavy government restrictions. So we worked really closely with the brand sellers and of course the relevant government agencies to provide as much support to minimize disruptions in shipments. And a lot of this involved going city by city, following local ordinances and making announcements to make sure these were moving. Then I'll talk about sellers. So sellers, definitely, it was very intimidating to start this transition to e-commerce. It's unfamiliar to many. There's specific skill sets to digital marketing that it takes time to learn. But I think through our relationship managers and programs such as Seller Masterclass, the MSMEs grew more confident to grow their business with Shopee. So a lot of it was getting them used to selling online and making sure we guided them along the way. The last pillar was brands and brands. I think many now see this as a massive growth opportunity, and we were very well placed to help these brands reach their customers to capture more growth. I can cite that there are now over 25,000 brands on Shopee Mall across the region, and the number of brands on Shopee Mall has grown 4.5 times since 2017, which is huge, and orders have grown 10 times, outpacing Shopee's overall platform growth. And I mean, these are the common concerns, but I can talk about then the innovations that we had to introduce because of the pandemic. But I do believe we responded very well. We were quite quick to pivot what was needed. We were focusing on social shopping as a trend. We dove into the needs of payments and deliveries as a core focus. And I can talk more about payments because we continue to enhance our digital payment options, which is really Shopee Pay. And the idea here is making this whole checkout process seamless and quick. And of course, now the next part of that is working with brands, brand partners to drive higher adoption of Shopee Pay so people can go through this seamless payment process. And whether we're here to stay for good, I think Shopee's, really become part of our daily lives, and I hope I don't see that changing. And that's strongly supported by that anecdote I had with DTI's e-commerce roadmap that I mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Martin. What about John?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that Martin said. I already alluded to delivery. It was very important. I talked about us creating Centro as a vehicle to get people online in the simplest, fastest way with their own web presence, and then from there entering marketplaces and maybe more sophisticated e-commerce tools, but integrating delivery into that solution so that they didn't have to worry about it. That was a big response for us. And as I alluded to right at the beginning, once you get people online, all of the other challenges start to surface. And I think one of the biggest ones for smaller sellers, outside of the largest brands, really is access to credit. And that was the impetus behind us developing CCAP. And, as I've alluded, we've built it so that it embeds seamlessly into our own e-commerce platform. We have embedded CCAP into Lazada. I'm looking forward to embedding CCAP into Shopee. now that Martin and I know each other. So I look forward to providing that much needed access to credit to the merchants on Shopee as well. But that was a big one. That was a big one for us. And I guess after that, it starts to get into the supply chain behind retail. So our payments platform embedding a bank account and access to a virtual payment card, so that the smaller vendors in particular could pay their suppliers. We are working now on embedding receivables financing into our payments platform, so that there is a delay between when payment is received. It's been received, whether it's a credit card payment, a wallet payment, an over-the-counter payment, but it often takes a day or two to settle. And so we're embedding the capability to make that for the merchant and the supplier to make that, more instantaneous, to help them with their cash flow. And then on the product side, that would be things like integrating drop shipping, and wholesaler bulk purchase into the deeper e-commerce workflow. So those are things we're looking at now that we're where we are today.
Awesome, quick pandemic pivots there. Now let's talk to Paolo.
So when you look at the history of a company like Apple, one of the most pivotal moments for them was when they went from, we build everything ourselves and it needs to be part of our ecosystem, otherwise it doesn't exist on our devices, was when they decided to say, let's work with Microsoft's technology, let's work with other players out there in order to create a product on our side that speaks to more things that our customers do on a day-to-day basis. And that, I think, was, aside from the device enhancements like the iPod and the iPhone, that was a pivotal moment for Apple. I think the pandemic has brought a lot of companies to have to look outside of their own company into other ecosystems in order to gain strength and in order to thrive. And one of the things that we've seen over the last year is that innovation, in many cases for us, aside from some of the ones that I mentioned earlier on the onboarding experience, on the multi-channel experience, one of the biggest ones for us was interoperability. And interoperability means, first of all, the ability for a merchant of ours to accept payments from any payment method out there. When a customer walks into one of our merchant stores or goes on to one of our merchants' websites, what we want to see as a customer really is, it doesn't matter if I'm holding a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, JCB, a GCash, a PayMaya, a GrabPay, an Alipay, a WeChat Pay, a Shopee Pay, any payment method for us needs to be something that the customer can pay with at our merchants, because the satisfaction of the customer and the ease of operation of the customer is ultimately what we are all thriving towards, right? So that was, to me, interoperability was one of the big holy grails for us. And the launch of QRPH, which is happening as we speak now, which is the national standard for QR in the Philippines, is something that we as consumers, as customers, should all be looking forward to, because it means that my BDO Pay account can go and scan my GrabPay QR or whatever it might be. And every let's say, customer out there should be looking forward to that. For us, embedding these various payment methods and these interoperable payment experiences into our merchants has been something that has been absolutely critical. And we've been able to do it as, I think, the first acquirer in the Philippines to launch QRPH with the central bank. Now, the second big piece of innovation that we saw on our side, at least, was the giving the possibility, and that's something that John, I think, alluded to earlier several times, actually, which is when you see a merchant in a situation where cash flow is limited or challenged, you then have a situation where that merchant needs to access capital in a way that is fast, seamless, and that can be repaid and collected in a very easy way. So we launched at the beginning of this year, we saw that some of our physical stores that work on our Smart Padala platform were having difficulty accessing credit. And so we can see all of their cash flows on a day-to-day basis. And we thought, why don't we extend to them credit when they most need it? And obviously, this can only be done for us because of the fact that we see those cash flows, and can only be done for merchants where we actually have a competitive advantage. We're not a BDO, we're not a union bank, so we're not as good as them at extending credit to companies that we don't know as well as we do. But for us, really looking at our own ecosystem of merchants and providing them with financial services that are relevant to them is something that we want to do. And recently we launched insurance for some of our consumers and some of our merchants who have, for example, a fear of what happens if I get dengue, what happens if I get COVID, and providing them with very easy insurance that is on the device where they're making a purchase or accepting a purchase is something that is obviously seamless and critical to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So those are the two big things that I think were big changes for us during the pandemic. It was interoperability and embedding financial services.
I love what you said about how companies needing to work with other companies. We got a similar point when we were talking to the Resto organization in a previous Project Rebound. You know, restaurants are usually competing, but during the pandemic, they actually came together and started working together. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. And I wanted to say that as a consumer, I'm so grateful for the innovations that your companies have been doing, because in the early days of the lockdown, especially, the few times you want to go out, you don't want to bring a lot of things with you, right? Because you have to sanitize everything when you come back in. And it was such a relief to be able to leave the house with just my phone and know that I can pay for whatever it is I'm going to buy outside. That's such a great thing. Okay, Martin touched on this a while ago, but I wanted to ask John and Paolo also. But Martin, you have to ask the other question as well. Do you think the online platform, the online e-commerce platform, is staying for good? I think we know the answer to that. And since we know the answer to that, what makes an online seller successful for those who, still have to get into it? Okay, Martin, let's start with you.
Oh yeah, I jumped the gun there. so I do think, we're here for good. I don't see that changing. And I think Shopee has very strong brand recognition among consumers. We strengthened our relationships with communities and have the region's largest and most engaged e-commerce user base. So I think that's kind of building us to being something that will be here for a very long time. So what makes an online seller successful? I could talk about their abilities to adapt, because I think e-commerce is quite a journey. So you'll want to grow with it. I do believe that the e-commerce experience of a few years ago to now has changed quite a bit, but growing with it in terms of the knowledge and learnings that changes over time is very important. And maybe it's easier for me to talk about this through an example. And I can just call her Gina. She owns a shop called Habi on Shopee. So Gina used e-commerce to turn her passion for protecting the environment into a business with help of Shopee. So she sells all these organic and sustainable products on Shopee. This includes reusable cotton pads, eco-friendly hygiene products for women. And due to ease of access, Gina was able to reach much more of these green shoppers to look for these items. And of course, with that, her advocacies also can reach countless of like-minded individuals. So it's how do you adapt what you're doing and bringing it online, which is really what's needed for success.
Now, John, let's go to you.
Sorry.
John, you're on mute. Sorry.
There you go. I'm 2 for 2. I think from our perspective, what's important to be successful online, and of course, there's many things, but a couple that stand out for us. One is really working on the user experience, both for the consumer and for the merchant. So for example, one of the ways that people will choose to pay digitally is through their bank account. And that can be done, but with some, at the beginning of the pandemic, and this still occurs, paying through their bank means leaving the e-commerce channel, going to their bank app, Instapaying, maybe sending a screenshot to verify that you paid. It's kind of the digital version of the old, I'll deposit it at your bank and send you a picture of the deposit slip. So that process has been digitized. But making that user experience better was very important to us. So for example, in our Bucks payments platform, where we aggregate and virtualize the largest number of payment methods in the Philippines, as far as we know, our integration of online banking had to be in line with the checkout experience. So you don't leave the e-commerce platform to go pay through your bank account through InstaPay. It's all in line with the process of checking out. And so within that experience, you authenticate with your bank without leaving the purchase experience. So things like, and I'm just giving a very specific example, but user experience. And for the merchants, user experience for the merchants, I've alluded a number of times to access to working capital. Paolo also a great story around how they make working capital available to their merchants. And I think both my story and Paolo's story speak directly to user experience for the merchants without them leaving the merchant experience in our case, something like Lazada and soon to be Shopee. And in Paolo's case, leaving the PayMaya environment, the merchant can apply and get access to credit instantaneously and on demand and within the merchant experience. And I think, so user experience, I think that's key. The second one is showing up where your customers are. I talked about providing opportunities to get merchants from things as simple as Facebook and Viber to their own web store, to a marketplace, getting them on to a Shopee. But the reality is you have to be where your customers are. So as much as you need to do that to reach more buyers and to reach more customers, if your customers are on Viber, and most likely they are on Facebook, you also need to be there. So it's, omni-channel is the name of the game. Know where your customers are and you have to show up there. And it's probably in multiple places.
I like that. Omni-channel is the name of the game. Paolo, what about you? What do you think online is here to stay for good? And what makes an online seller successful?
Yeah, listen, Pan, if you're looking at other countries that have made the transition from physical world to digital world, there's only one direction to go, right? Which is more digital and more online. And if anything, I think the Philippines is really on that journey also. And so it's tough to argue any other way than digital and online is the future. In terms of what makes an online seller successful, I think it'd be very difficult for me to give it anything that Martin hasn't given it, Shopee is the holy grail of making an online seller successful, or what John said. So I'm going to take what John said and add an appendix to it. So omni-channel is obviously extremely important. Be where your customer is, but also omni-payment. Omni-payment meaning if I only have one payment method on my payment experience and my customer shows up and he has a different one, then I'm creating an additional pain point or problem for my customer. I experienced that when I was living in Europe, when I had an American Express card, for example, and a lot of merchants were not accepting American Express, and I would go to the next merchant and make my purchase. Or I've experienced that in several other countries. And in the Philippines, I think with the interoperability that I spoke about earlier, and with players like ourselves who make all payment types available to merchants, I think that's something that is something of the past and is the best way for a merchant to succeed in getting a customer to actually make a payment.
So that makes perfect sense. Make it easy for them to pay. Okay, Dax, over to you.
Okay, guys. My favorite part, very briefly, I'll ask three of you to look at your crystal balls, but I want you, I'm going to tweak the question a bit. And I want you to tell me from where you stand, what kind of hurdles do you see in front of you, which is preventing you from getting to where you want to be, or more specifically, are our stakeholders? What's stopping them, and what needs to be done to clear that hurdle? Martin?
It's a good question, and I don't like to look at things as hurdles. A lot of them is actually we have a long list of things we need to do, and many of this is working with the guys in this room, and we want to fast track as much of those and get that done, and so it's not so much as a hurdle, but more of just getting through the work that needs to be done to get it so that we can best serve our customers. And a lot of that, what Paolo mentioned around interoperability, is very, very important. And I think that's where we want to go as well, making sure that people can have a very seamless buying experience when they shop on Shopee.
Fantastic. John Jay?
Yeah, I'm with Martin on this. I choose to look at this positively. I think, and I alluded to our own personal anecdotes around digital payments delivery. At the beginning of the pandemic, government, Paolo talked about government payments now. You can only do it digitally. Our economy, or at least the participants in the economy, or who will drive the recovery, have pivoted significantly. Some of it's the quote unquote infrastructure, like we've talked about it. Some of it is, like Paolo's alluded to, the mindset. Mindsets have changed. What was before kind of ring-fenced and at times even a little bit clannish is now much more co-opetition. We at UBX, we don't try to do it all ourselves. There are companies that we compete with and cooperate with at the same time. And I bet you for the three of us, there are lots of anecdotes that we could share about layering of what are ostensibly competitor services in our own solutions for the greater good, both economically and from a society perspective. And I guess there's just tremendous resiliency. Obviously, I'm not Filipino, but having been here for a long time, one thing that I think impresses outsiders is how resilient and creative the Filipino is. And so I think we will rebound. And a lot of the merchants and the consumers that we're talking about today are going to play a pivotal role in revitalizing the economy of the Philippines, and it will be revitalized. I believe the way to say it is "Believe ako sa Pinoy."
All right. Paolo, do you share the same positivity of these two gentlemen?
Of course, I share the positivity, and that's the reason why I'm here. Now, I think there's the right mix of people and companies here in terms of the talent and the type of companies that have been built over the last few years. And there's obviously the right level of, at this point, support from a government perspective and from a regulatory standpoint. There's also the right level of money that has been injected into these types of companies. Creating a PayMaya, UBX, a Shopee, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of financial investment, and that has been poured into the Philippines. And I do think that with those all coming together, there's a reason to really be positive about the future. And the obstacles to me don't come in the form of which integration will take how long and which government rule will come in at which point. I think these are all things that are very easily surmounted, and that's something I think that Martin was talking about earlier. I think the biggest challenges for us are going to be external to what we as companies can do and what the government can do in terms of regulating us as companies and working with us as companies. It's going to come from how fast can we exit the current situation that we're in, how fast can we get 110 million Filipinos back on their feet, and how fast can we run back to where we were earlier, which was the $300, $400, $500 billion of GDP every year, and becoming one of the top 20 or 30 countries in the world from a GDP perspective. That's something that is on the horizon and not too far off. So I am extremely positive about this, and I think it's only a matter of time before all these obstacles get taken out of the way.
Very infectious enthusiasm. Thank you. Pam, go ahead.
Yeah, very good to end the discussion on that positive note. There's so much more that we want to tackle, but sadly, that's all the time we have for this Inquirer Project Rebound webinar. Once again, thank you so much to our panelists for sharing their insights and experiences with us. We're going to be ending this online discussion with a closing message from all of our panelists. Let's start with Martin.
Thanks, Pam. So I guess my main message is our goal as Shopee is to make e-commerce accessible to all. We want to improve the way we shop, ensure that doing digital is really possible for all entrepreneurs. Online platforms such as us can empower even the most marginalized sectors of the community. So we're very, very proud of the role Shopee plays for many Filipinos, and that includes sellers, brands, and of course, buyers. However, there's still a largely untapped e-commerce opportunity, and we're very fortunate to be in a strong position to create a unique experience for users and help more businesses digitize. So thank you once again to the Philippine Daily Inquirer for inviting us to be part of Project Rebound.
Thank you so much
Martin,
for being part of it. Now, John, let's hear from
John
you.
J.
Thank you. Our vision at UBX is quite simply opportunity and access for all. I would like to, thank my fellow panelists here and the Inquirer for sharing that vision with us. Collectively, what we are doing, and having the privilege to serve the Philippines. Together, we will, and I truly believe this, we will make a truly positive and material impact on truly inclusive prosperity. In spite of the pandemic, we will rebound and we will come out of this better than ever.
I love that. Inclusive prosperity. That's beautiful. Now, Paolo, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah, I think when I was listening to Martin talk about a couple of his seller stories, and when I was listening to you, Pam, actually talk about Project Rebound and what it's trying to accomplish and what it is accomplishing, I really like the fact of using stories and insights from merchants and people out there to inspire others who are maybe not at the same stage as them to do better and to think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I really think that with the kind of solutions that PayMaya, UBX, Shopee can bring to the table, that and with the insight stories and inspirations that we can draw from people who've come out of this pandemic even stronger, that's something that can really lighten the lives and really drive people forward, not just for them and us, but for 110 million Filipinos.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. This has been a very interesting discussion, and you guys are building the technology. You're making it easy for sellers and for shoppers. And this is me pledging to you that I will be helping Rebound by continuing to shop some more. We're very grateful to our panelists for sharing their insights and learnings. And we hope that those of you watching learn a thing or two from them and are inspired also to take your businesses online and to shop. Okay, Dax.
And that's it for our webinar today. Thank you again to our panelists for sharing their time and insights with us. Thank you once again for being part of the Inquirer Project Rebound webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer.
And thank you so much to our viewers. We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy. Continue reading the Philippine Daily Inquirer for authoritative news and features. Once again, I'm Pam Pastor of Inquirer Lifestyle.
And I am Dax Lucas from Inquirer Business. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
The Philippine Daily Inquirer would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream event possible. PMFTC Inc., delivering a smoke-free future. PayMaya Philippines, PLDT, Smart, Simple, Smart Ako, Shopee, Union Bank, Bank the way you live. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to... We'd also like to thank Inquirer.net, Mega Mobile, and Inquirer Academy.
Wala akong ibang nais kundi maparating sa'yo, maibigay ng tagumpay pangangailangan mo. Kahit na malayo pang patutunguhan ko, lalakbayin basta para sa'yo.
Sino ka man, nasaan ka man, nandito ang Shopee para sa inyo. Shopee 66, mid your sale. Shop na!
Add to cart mo na.
Napansin mo ba? Mas madalas ka nang magsabi ng stay safe kesa bye-bye. At aminin mo, nawili ka sa TikTok, hindi para mapasaya ang sarili, kundi para mapatawang iba. Napansin mo rin ba na palagi na kayong kumpleto pag nagsisimba? At sino mag-aakala na ang daming maglalabas ang internet celebrities ngayon? Ilang pagkain na bang na-order mo? Kahit di ka naman gutom, uhaw ka lang makatulong. At nakailang care emojis ka nang nasend mula ng ECQ. Pansin mo, iba na bigla ang go-to playlist mo. Alam mo rin bang mas maraming naglalabas ng pera ngayon? Kahit taghirap? Alam mo kung bakit? Kasi patuloy mang magbago ang mundo, isang bagay ang mananatili.
Malalampasan din natin to.
Hindi tayo mawawalan ng pag-asa. Kaya patuloy namin pinapanatili pinakamabilis at pinakamalawak ang inyong network. So we can all be connected by hope.
8 billion of us share our planet. And it is estimated that more than 1 billion adults smoke. While the risks of smoking are well known, most smokers still don't do what's best: quit tobacco and nicotine altogether. And many of those don't know that better alternatives to continued smoking exist, or have access to them. So many smokers who would otherwise continue smoking wouldn't know or think to change. Our message is simple. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. We believe everyone deserves better. We believe adult smokers deserve access to better alternatives and all the resources they need to make an informed decision. Action from smokers and those who love them can change things. So stand up, be heard, and add your voice to the calls for a better future. Unsmoke your world.
Where am I? Welcome, Dante. Let me show you around. Please, write legibly. Wait po. Teka.
Thank you. Next.
I need to pay my bills.
Ayun, sabihin nga, Bill. Yan. Enroll nyo muna mga billers nyo.
What? With my UB Online, no need to enroll to pay my bills. Pwedeng free yung fund transfer and one valid ID lang, naka-open na ako ng account via app. I don't belong here.